All right. So, welcome to Miggy Talks, where Miggy, my friend,
Hello.
gets a chance to play certain video games that I personally haven't had the time to invest in. And starting off, Little Town Hero, a game made by Game Freak, the people that made the iconic Pokemon games for the Game Boy. And also, if I'm not mistaken, Miguel, the producer of the music also produced the music for Undertale for this game?
Yes, same composer.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. One big company and one big individual. So, to start off, what can you tell me about the game? What's the story like?
So the story is pretty straightforward. You play as this character named Axe, who is this fun little character. Sort of reminds me of Link. It's like the
Okay.
way it starts off, and kind of like his mannerism as well, like the way he moves around and like his voice. But to go back to the story, so it starts off with him trying to get into this castle to get out of this village he lives. And the main rule for that village is you can never leave the outside area.
All right.
There's only one exit, and that's going through the castle. So his whole thing is he wants to leave the village, go explore and see what's on the outside world. So he's coming up with these plans to try to get inside the castle. And something that was pretty funny, the way it starts off is he's got his buddy Nels, who helps him come up with a plan to try to distract the guards that are blocking the entrance.
Okay.
And their plan is to set Nels' pants on fire, convince the guards that the town is burning. And it's funny too, because Nels has a little interaction with the guards, and the guards are just like, "Whoa, look at his pants, they're on fire. He must be telling the truth," which I thought was pretty funny.
What? That's so strange.
So it cuts off to that, and obviously the plan fails because the guards get there and they realize there's no fire.
Okay.
And then it sort of just derails from that to Axe going back to his home. He's being scolded by his mother, Ember, for putting Nels in such a bad situation, as always getting him into trouble, into situations that always turn out bad.
From what I'm gathering, he's a bit of a misfit.
He's a little rascal,
Okay.
to say the very least.
All right. All right.
But he's fun. Like, he's your generic character where he's very spunky.
Okay.
And from there, the game just really kicks off where it doesn't really give you time to think about the initial trying to get into the castle, because it starts introducing you to the rest of the cast. You meet,
All right.
I'm gonna butcher his name, but I believe it's pronounced Angard,
Okay.
who is this older soldier who is patrolling the village, protecting it from monsters, stuff like that. So it's really funny. They go straight into how Angrid and Axe have met, and it does a flashback, and it sort of shows you how they first met and how he agreed to train Axe to become a soldier, to be able to have access to leave the castle and go venture out forth.
So he wants to be able to see the whole world. That's his motivation?
That's his motivation.
Okay, cool. Cool. I mean, again, we're not trying to give the entire synopsis of the game.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's totally fine. I'm glad that you're
I-
excited about this game. And
I
it
I
shows.
really do like this game. I'm sorry.
It shows. No, don't apologize. It really shows that you really did enjoy this game. Were there any specific characters that stuck out to you that you enjoyed their appearance?
Yes. So, and it's really bad because I loved all of the cast. I thought they were very well done, and they're all kooky in their own unique ways. They all have their own traits. But the two that stuck, and I always go back to thinking about, is Matic or Matok, who is Axe's rival slash friend.
Okay.
He's essentially, if I had to compare him, he's like your typical rival in any Pokemon game. You have Gary Oates or any of those people.
All right.
But he's unique in the way where you want to hate him, but you end up loving how silly he is in his approach when he talks to Axe. When Axe does something, Maddock tries to play it off like it was his idea the whole time.
All right.
And you're just like, see, I knew you can do it. What are you talking about? It was my plan. Yeah, my plan all along.
All right.
And the other person that comes to mind is Grandma Yarn. She is this grandma character to one of the main love interests for Axe, but she acts as though as the grandma for the entire cast, like the entire group.
All right.
What I loved about her was her character, the way she had her dialogue, where she she knew she was old, but she still wanted to pretend that she was like this young, spiteful woman.
Sort of like
And-
Master Roshi, right?
Pretty much. And she would tell tall tales like, oh, one time I drove off this monster with my bare hands, and then she does like this kooky little dance where she's like moving her hips and like doing like this weird put 'em up motion.
All right, that's interesting. Were there any? I'm trying to think because the aesthetic of this game, from the little bit that I saw while you were playing, it's very chibi-like, very cute, very easygoing and fun. Did the main character have any sort of love interest, perhaps? Was it just everyone was family?
No, so they give you somewhat of a misleading interpretation that you're going to be able to choose a certain, love interest when there's only, in fact, one, and her name is Pasmina,
Okay.
Grandma Yarn's granddaughter. But, I
Okay.
mean, there's nothing too much about her that really stuck out to me. I thought her character was, nicely designed. She's just your standard nice girl, nice to everyone, friendly, very, very positive.
All right, so from what I'm hearing, she's pretty much the cheerleader.
Basically, yes.
Okay, not bad. What about the antagonist of this story? Did they stick out to you, the bad guys?
So, I felt bad mainly because I judged this character right off the bat before even getting to know what this character was about. So the main antagonists for this game are Torin and the Minister.
Okay, and if I remember correctly, Torin is a giant three-headed dragon thing, isn't it?
No.
Oh, he's not. Okay.
Okay. So Torin is, you find out later in the game, he is a mixture of human and monster.
Okay.
And I mean, right off the bat, his looks just scream out, this is the villain. He looks evil. But it's so bad because when you first get interactions with him, he seems like such a nice guy. And he doesn't give you any sort of warning that he is a bad guy. Like his intentions are bad.
Okay.
And his intentions weren't necessarily bad, I would say. His whole thing was he was trying to create another hybrid like himself to have a friend.
Wait, you're telling me the main bad guy of this game, his whole reason for being the bad guy was simply because he needed a friend?
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie to you, that doesn't sound like much of a bad guy. It sounds like a misunderstood character.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I wanted to hate him simply for the reason that, they're making you see him as the bad guy, but I didn't feel that.
This sounds as if it's a very Pixar Disney type of game.
Yes.
It's very fairy tale-like, very feel-good type of story.
So the thing with this game is I feel like there's no actual bad guy, but you have to sort of single them out simply because of their actions and the way the main character sees how they're being portrayed. But the whole thing with those two is one is just trying to have, some sort of companionship, and the other is just trying to keep his kingdom safe by any means necessary.
I see. One person is thinking about the needs of the community, and the other one is thinking about themselves.
Yes.
All right, interesting. What can you tell me about the gameplay? From what I saw, and admittedly, I only saw you play this title for maybe an hour, the gameplay looks very unique. They have this whole unique take on the Pokemon combat formula. What can you tell me about that?
The gameplay is definitely unique. It's something I've never personally experienced before in the way they did it, where it's a strategy turn-based game.
Right.
But the main thing with this is you have to really they make you stop and think about your next move very carefully, because one wrong move and your many rounds of good rounds can just be like wasted. You'll end up losing your next turn.
Okay. So every move pretty much determines the outcome of the entire battle.
Yes.
If you make one wrong mistake, you won't see the error of your ways until much later in the fight, where you run out of methods to attack. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. So from the start, with each battle, you have to plan it out. From what I'm understanding, you have to essentially be 4 or 5 steps ahead of the AI that you're fighting.
Exactly.
All right, that's actually pretty cool. One thing that caught my attention in regards to the gameplay, I noticed that it's relatively straightforward, But then there's a sudden difficulty spike when you were playing with the one particular boss.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
hence why I refer to him as a three-headed dragon, Torin.
oh,
From what I saw, and when I listened to you provide the commentary while playing, you were not a fan of the final boss of this game.
don't get me wrong. I loved that fight. No matter how mad it actually got me, I'm just like, I'm gonna beat you. I can beat you. I know I can. I just have to find the right sequence of turns and moves and beat you. Another thing with the gameplay is it is turn-based in its strategy, but also luck is a very big factor in it. Because once you finish the turn, you essentially have to roll a dice to determine where you're gonna land next on the board. And if you are very unlucky like I was in that fight, you're gonna keep rolling ones when you really needed a 3 or a 2, and you're gonna keep getting ones, and you're gonna eventually get to a very high enough turn where you run out of these actions, which are called Dazits or Wazits.
I'm sorry, what?
That's literally what it's called.
Dazits
So the
Wodits?
whole thing for the gameplay is the combat relies on things called ideas, and each idea is named differently to what they do. A Wazit is pretty much your defense stuff. It's yellow icons. Dazits are red, making it for that's your action sequence. But those are very limited.
Hence why you have to plan out your attack from the beginning all the way to the end, because you don't have an infinite amount of moves.
Exactly. But they can be replenished once they run out by either using your BP, which is battle points, or allowing yourself to take like actual heart damage, and all your ideas get refreshed. You get an overshield over your initial heart icons.
Okay.
But it's very risky doing that.
Why is it risky?
Because certain bosses, especially the last boss,
Torin,
will have not just one, but like 2 or 3 multipliers, or sorry, not multipliers, different modifiers on his attacks. So you can easily break his ideas, but some of them have consequences for breaking them, which if you break one, it automatically does damage to your initial hearts, bypassing any guard you have. Another one, which was very irritating for me, at least, specifically because I would hold on to them for the next turn, is this one thing called Wrath, where soon as he picked it, the modifier would destroy any random idea I had on me or in my inventory, so to speak.
Okay.
Which made it so much harder because I did not have the ideas to spare. I did not have the BP to refresh my ideas, and I couldn't afford to take any hits to refresh my ideas either.
Ugh.
It was a very uphill battle.
Sounds like it. But what about the rest of the game? Was that pretty much easy trails, cakewalk?
So I will say there were a few, like I have to say, 2 bosses that were kind of a bump in the road. Every other boss was relatively easy. It's only about like 4 or 5 bosses in the game in total.
Okay.
The first one is an ogre, who is the very first monster you encounter. He's relatively straightforward. He's the one that pretty much gets you adjusted to playing the game without any tutorials and no safety net. So whatever choice you make, the game's not going to tell you, hey, don't do that, try using this instead. The second one, which was my personal favorite out of all of them.
Why is that?
Mainly because of how ridiculous the fight was. And the music for that fight was so great. It was the giant sheep fight, Kuturo, where you go to help Pasmina and her grandma wrangle up these sheep that have gotten like a little wild. And one of them is like oozing with this dark energy and transforms into a monster. And the whole time you're fighting it around the farm, you're hearing this really cool music playing with like, how would I explain it? It resembles the music from Persona.
Really? Okay.
Yes. If I had to be very specific, Persona 5.
Okay.
The initial battle music.
Really?
And I liked it so much that I went back to fight that boss.
Just to listen to the music again?
Just to listen to the music again.
Yeah, I did something similar to that with Hades, I believe.
I mean, not to say that like all the music in general wasn't good. It's just that song particularly really stood out to me.
All right. That's pretty cool. So only 2 boss fights out of the 5 were actually somewhat challenging for you.
Yes.
Okay. That's pretty interesting, actually. How long is this game?
So if you Google it, Wiki will tell you it's about 10 to 12 hours long.
Right.
That's if you pick up the mechanics relatively fast and you're good at strategizing your next move without really seeing what's going to happen next. But if you get overly cocky, like I did in certain fights where I was like, I already know how to play the game, a single boss fight that will normally last you like 20 minutes at most can take you up to 3 hours.
Jesus. 3-hour boss fight. That reminds me of my experiences in Fire Emblem Three Houses. Not the main game, but the DLC.
Oh.
Where you have to fight this dragon, and it took me, I think, around 40 turns to beat this dragon in the Wolf House DLC. But that's a totally different game. We're talking about this one.
Admittedly, it would have taken me maybe like 10 hours in total to beat the game if I didn't struggle that hard with the last boss. And it mainly had to do because I lost my temper and I was letting the game essentially goat me into making mistakes.
Interesting. So the game was essentially playing mind games with you, the player.
Yes. The main way I can describe the way they did that is throughout the entire game, they keep reminding you, hey, it's all right. Take your time to pick your next move. But when you're fighting the second to last boss, he has a modifier that pretty much throws that entire way of thinking out the window, where his modifier, you have exactly 10 seconds to make up your mind of what you want to use. Which, if you're starting out and you don't know what his other modifiers do, you're gonna be skeptical and make some mistakes. Like that boss fight, it didn't take me long to beat it. I did lose my first try, but second try I beat it. Every other fight before that, it was pretty much, first try attempt. But the last two bosses were the ones that I had to really buckle down and think of a strategy to beat these guys.
All right, that actually sounds pretty fun, surprisingly.
On a side note,
okay,
if you are looking for something even more challenging than those, there is a side quest you can obtain, which admittedly I didn't bother doing the side quests because mainly some of them weren't exactly readily available. Some of them you have to do on certain days, and I didn't want to take the time out of my day to actually do those. I wanted to know more about the story. But there is a side quest where you are able to fight what is supposed to be the hardest boss in the game. It's some like weird possessed doll thing.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that's pretty interesting. I might go back and fight that just to see what it's like, but I'm not sure. If the last boss fight gave me that much of a hard time, this one's probably going to make me go insane.
But that's an excellent segue. Since you mentioned side notes, other than just the story, the gameplay, even the music, which you seem to enjoy all of it, what else stood out to you? What side notes could you give about this game? Anything very unique that caught your attention?
The humor.
The humor. Okay.
Like it wasn't overly funny in other people's opinions, but from like my point of view, there was a lot of what I would say dad jokes thrown in there, which I personally love.
All right, dad jokes are always fun from time to time. Anything else that really stood out to you? The humor, what about a character's particular style? Was there any character whose style really caught your attention that you just loved?
I did like Torn.
You like Torn's style, all right.
Mainly because he was the only one that actually had more flair to him.
You liked him because he was extravagant.
Yes.
All right, I can't judge. What about the weapons that you use in this game?
So that's one thing. This game, I mean, I wouldn't say they misled me. Is I had my own interpretation that there were going to be weapon types you can choose from, which that's not the case.
Okay.
You can't go in. There are these shops in the town. You can go in them and see them, but you can't actually do shopping. The weapons you use is whatever weapon Axe starts off with, which is basically just a shield and a pickaxe.
Okay.
And you only play as Axe.
Oh, see, that's an interesting little bit of information. You only play as Axe. It's not an entire party fighting alongside you.
Well, they do help you in the maps. In certain spaces where you can go to, their icons will be there, and they're basically just support characters. Each one has their own unique support ability to help Axe in his fights.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's not a Final Fantasy type of game where you slowly accumulate an entire party and you control each individual member and they all fight together.
No.
So you only play as Axe, and the other characters are just there to support him.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds very familiar to other games that I've played. Off the top of my head, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, where they have this entire card system and you don't really fight with anyone, but you pull out the right card and they'll support you in some way. But instead of just a standard numerical rating system, 0 out of 10, 5 out of 10, whatever, instead of just doing a standard numerical rating system, we're going to try, let's say, our own system, a quote system. What words would you associate with this game? What words come to mind that would help define your experience with this game?
Oh boy, I had to say this game was pleasant.
All right, care to elaborate?
Well, pleasant in the way that even though there was, cases of me getting mad with certain fights, particularly the last two, I still enjoyed the game very much. I wasn't left with any bitterness. I just wanted to keep playing the game. It never got to the point where I wanted to stop playing the game. Everything about the game was enjoyable.
All right. So the first word, pleasant. Any others?
I would say surprising.
Surprising. What made this game surprising to you?
Just the mechanics for the gameplay itself. That was completely foreign to me. It was nice to have a change of pace because I've just been used to your standard RPGs, shooters. Generally the more mainstream games.
Okay, so surprising because it gave you something different.
Yes.
All right. Can you give me one more word?
I would say lively.
Lively. How so?
The characters themselves, it's even though you play in such a small little map, the characters themselves make the world feel bigger.
Okay.
There's always something going on. You see the characters interacting with one another. You can go and talk to any of them at any time, and they always have something new to say to you.
So, from this new quote system, from what you're saying, it was pleasant, surprising, and lively.
Yes.
All right. Did you feel as though this was a waste of time playing this game?
Not at all.
All right, that's pretty great then. It's always great to hear when someone is enthusiastic about a game, especially a new game where they go out of their comfort zone and they don't play their usual genres. So it is absolutely amazing to hear that you had such a great time with this game. It's really wonderful. Any last minute comments you'd like to add?
Oh man, good job, Game Freak.
Good job, Game Freak. You gained another fan. I mean, outside of your iconic Pokemon games, you gained a fan for a different franchise. So good job, Game Freak. But again, with all of that being said, myself and Miggy here, we're not here to tell you whether or not you should or shouldn't buy the game. That is entirely up to you. It is your money. It is your personality. We just wanted to share, or at least Miggy was kind enough to share his perspective on the game. And we hope you all can appreciate that. But with that being said, I hope you guys had a fantastic day. And even if you didn't, I hope you have an even better tomorrow. We'll hopefully see you guys next time. Have a good night, everybody.